So, by popular demand, I'm going to discuss a topic because it's come up several times to me, to our front desk staff, and to our therapist. Parents often ask, I know I'm probably going to need multiple therapies. What's the best order to pursue these therapies? And let me pull out my big crystal ball. No, there's actually no recipe for this. There are trends, but people approach these trends in multiple ways. So there's really not a right or wrong answer to this. It's really individualized to your family, your kid, your schedule, and your insurance coverage. There's a lot of things we consider when we look at multiple services. So I'm going to give you a few pointers on what we consider so that can help you to make a better choice. So, it's important to look at your benefits because you may have a visit cap or a visit limit, and it may include multiple disciplines. Sometimes it's separate. Sometimes it'll be 50 OT, 50 PT, 50 speech. Sometimes it'll be 40 combined or 50 combined. So we need to think about that component. With many of our Blue Cross clients, it's a visit can be 4 to 6 units, so it can be an hour to an hour and a half. So we work with going to an hour and a half, and we know we have less visits per discipline so that we can maximize your time. So sometimes if we know there's a visit concern or consideration, we'll start one therapy and then we'll bleed into another therapy and then another therapy. Now, some families come here just pursuing, let's say, occupational therapy, and the OT decides, you know what, you really need PT, and then they may decide later there's definitely a language component. So we can sometimes add those services in as you go. So there's no recipe for that. We're going to add those as we go. We really want to make sure when a kiddo starts here, if there's an endurance issue, that we're adding in services in a manner that they can participate in. There's also the co-treatment component. So sometimes we're not doing 2 hours and 45 minutes of treatment for 3 disciplines. We're overlapping, so it's more like 2 hours. We do, many of our clients, we have clients that come here for 3-4 hours. They bring a lunch and we take a break and we make that part of their process. They're working on a sedentary activity while they're doing lunch break. So we plan that as we can, but when somebody knows they're going to come in with multiple services, at that point, a lot of times they'll come in and say, my physician has recommended, let's say, occupational therapy. But we know we're going to need physical therapy, aquatics, and speech. Then what our occupational therapist will do is when we have that parent meeting, they'll sit down and say, we know you need to add these other disciplines. Let's add them in this order. Or sometimes there's not an endurance issue, and we will evaluate all 3 disciplines within a week period and start treatment. So there's really no protocol or no general answer. It's based on your child's ability. We have some kiddos that the parents are like, no, I want them engaged multiple days. And so they want to start all 3 services at one time. So there is no recipe. And we will assist you in helping to make that decision. We will work directly with your concerns. But like I said, this is approached from many avenues, and understand that we are looking at all those components I stated to you before we ever make a recommendation. And we may decide that, your speech is unlimited, but your OT and PT have limits. Let's go ahead and keep speech in place on multiple visits, but let's maybe start with OT and then maybe go to PT and then finish up with OT so that we don't have gaps in service. So we're not finishing up services in October because your visits have run out. It's also important for you as a parent to understand your benefits better than we do. We of course can make those recommendations, but we're managing multiple policies. If there's any changes in your policy, many times you stay with the same coverage, but it changes from year to year. You have to be careful because sometimes they've removed things from that policy, or the visit limits will change, or the deductible will change. So it's important that you're there managing that. And if you're you're one of our out of network families, ultimately you're going to get information much quicker than we are because we're not in your insurance network. We're billing and doing all that process, but they're going to contact you first. So I was regularly doing this as a parent. I can't tell you the amount of time I was on the phone with insurance company. It was pretty much a weekly endeavor for me. So it was like a full-time job managing that. So just make sure you're prepared. We're of course going to verify your benefits and keep track of that for you, but make sure you're prepared for those changes, because oftentimes those changes can be really upsetting when you're not prepared for them. But ultimately, we're not making those decisions. Those are decisions that your employer, if it's a self-funded plan, your employer has put in place, or if it's not, that your insurance company has decided to put in place. So these are just a few tips. If you guys have further questions, feel free to reach out to your clinician or the front office or the billing folks. They'd be more than happy to answer these questions for you.